hosted and produced by Josh Kangley. Josh is back in this season as he dives into Chance Englebert's case to keep the light on.
I want people to know that he was a great person, because he was a great person. He deserved the world, and he could have been so much. But I really want everybody to know that no matter what they've ever heard about him negatively, probably isn't the truth, because that kid didn't have a mean bone in his body. He would have done anything for anybody. He would have gave the shirt off his back for somebody he didn't know if they needed it more than he did. And that's not how they've ever portrayed him. But that is who he is.
This is Keeping the Light On, Nebraska's Missing Persons podcast. I'm your host, Josh Kangley, and in this season, we are on a mission to highlight one of these cases, the disappearance of Chance Englebert. To learn more about the events surrounding his disappearance, to explore Chance's life, and to keep a light on for him. This is Season 2, Chance Englebert.
He had things mapped out. He wanted to get in at the coal mines and then be able to spend his weekends and days off here back at the ranch. And this was his home, and he loved it here. And he should be here with us right now.
That was Dawn Englebert, Chance's mother. And you're going to hear more from her in this episode, along with other family and friends. And a surprise voice from someone who also was deeply touched by Chance. In the previous episode, Chapter 1, Rider in the Storm, we heard from the private investigator working Chance's case to help lay out the timeline and circumstances surrounding Chance's disappearance. In this episode, it's all about shining a light on Chance. When we hear the name Chance Englebert, too often, the story begins with his disappearance, with mystery, speculation, unanswered questions, and heartache. But I'd like to pause here in this episode and take a moment to remember that Chance is not just a case, not just a headline, but a person who was loved and is missed dearly. And to realize that his family, his friends, a community, 6 years later now, are still left in a void without Chance. Chance's best friend, Matt Miller, misses riding horses, hunting, fishing, working with him. His friend DJ misses the time on the ranch with him, having fun. His family misses him on the ranch, where he should be today. A rodeo athlete, a skilled welder and mechanic, a son, a husband, a father, a brother, a best friend. At 25, a whole life ahead. And with the potential he had, not even the wide open sky a limit. To those who knew and loved him, he was more than a name on the news. So in this episode, you're going to hear from family and friends, people who loved Chance and were touched by him. And with their voices, paint a picture of Chance and his life. We're going to shine a light on Chance Englebert. And as we continue on this journey together, fellow lightkeepers, let's carry Chance's memory with us, not just as a mystery to solve, but as a life to honor. A young man who needs to be found. Here now is Chapter 2, The Heart of a Cowboy. Born and raised in South Dakota, Chance grew up with wide open skies above him and the hardworking values of small town America, shaping who he was. He loved the outdoors, hunting, fishing, riding horses, and living the kind of life that's deeply connected to the land. Ranching wasn't just work to Chance. It was a part of who he was, and he carried that grit and work ethic with him in everything that he did. But Chance wasn't all work. He had a smile that could light up a room, and he loved to laugh. Friends and family remember him as someone who could lift your spirits, even on the hardest days. He had a way of making people feel at ease, of reminding you of the simple joys in life. And then there was family. Chance adored his wife, Bailey, and their little boy. Becoming a father was one of the proudest moments in his life. Those who knew him talk about how deeply he loved his son and how excited he was to give him the kind of life filled with love, guidance, and adventure that Chance himself had grown up with. I spoke with Chance's mother, Dawn, and we talked about Chance.
He loved his community. He loved helping the neighbors. He loved ranching. He loved hunting. He is our firstborn, an amazing little baby, an amazing toddler. His little brothers adored him. Great kid, hardworking kid. Never had to ask much of him. He was here and helped on the ranch and did everything. Went off to college and had a full ride scholarship with his bareback. It's LCCC, Laramie Community College in Cheyenne. He didn't have to pay for anything. Everything was paid for him, and he rode barebacks and bulls there at LCCC. Majored in diesel mechanics and welding. He was an amazing kid. He was great. We rodeoed and traveled together, all of us, all the time, every weekend off to another rodeo. Or when he went to college, we would travel to as many rodeos of his as we could. He had things mapped out. He wanted to get in at the coal mines and then be able to spend his weekends and days off here back at the ranch. And this was his home, and he loved it here, and he should be here with us right now.
Chance loved the rodeo and was very talented, but the rodeo can be hard on the body. He was, after all, riding wild horses, untamed, and huge bulls. So after a time, he got out of the rodeo and started to settle down, focusing more on his profession at the mine, while also continuing an interest in derby car racing.
He kind of grew out of the rodeo stuff. It was hard on his body, and he got into the derby cars, and his dad had raced derby cars when he was little. And so him and his little brother and his dad kind of went that way after college. And if he was off for more than a day and a half, he was here from Gillette. Gillette's about 2 hours away. If he had time off, he was down here doing either derby cars or ranching stuff.
Chance grew up on a ranch in South Dakota, later on attending college at Laramie Community College and Cheyenne on a full ride scholarship.
We lived it's Edgemont, South Dakota, so about 2 hours from Rapid. We've lived here. We brought Chance here to the ranch. This was his first home. And then he moved to Wyoming just because of the coal mines. He worked at the coal mines, and what they would work like a week, they worked days for a week, and then they'd have a 2-day short change, and then they'd go work nights, and then they'd have a week off. It was just easier for him to stay in Gillette while he was in the mines. Lived with different people off and on until him and Bailey had got together and bought the house. So he was here a lot.
I also spoke with Dylan, known to the family as DJ, who grew up with Chance, becoming friends, and even lived with Chance for a time. Dylan explains how he and Chance became friends.
Well, I think we really became friends because his grandma was our neighbor, and he spent a lot of time at his grandma's. And so we got to hang around each other a lot. And it was a small town, so there wasn't a lot of people to hang out to begin with. So it's kind of nice to have somebody close to the same age grow up next to me. He lived with me and another buddy there for a little while. He was a pretty cool guy. I mean, a lot of kids looked up to him. He was super athletic, good at sports, very good at rodeo, just pretty much all around good guy. Liked the party just like a lot of us did, and some still do, but easy to get along with. And he had his issues just like everybody did, but then the issues weren't as prevalent as they are for most people because he's pretty good at not letting people know his issues. Made it easy to be around him because he didn't do a lot of complaining, and he's always in a good mood, laughing. Rodeo was pretty much his life in general. I mean, he did very, very well at it. Him and his younger brother, Miles, were very good rodeo athletes. Miles was a bull rider, and Chance continued that on into college. And from what I can remember, he did really good in college as well.
Some of Dylan's best memories are going out to the ranch where there was space to let loose, an opportunity to get out of town.
A lot of them are probably just going out to their place, growing up out to the ranch and riding dirt bikes and four-wheelers out there. Because living in town, I didn't get a lot of open space to do that, so I had to ride in town. And going out there, it was always we always found dumb ways to have fun.
Sometimes we choose our family, and those people that we choose to be family into our lives are people we have a closer relationship and bond to, more so than even some we are related to. That's Aunt Katie to Chance. And her voice is the one you hear at the beginning of each episode of this season.
I was, I believe, 15 years old when they moved to Edgemont. And I lived with my grandparents. They raised me and my brother. This is going to sound horrible, but I was 15 and my grandma's mom just passed away. So she was bored and really paying attention to what I was doing. And so I happened to be in the bank, and that's where Dawn worked one day. And she was telling me she was having troubles finding a babysitter. And I said, I have just the lady that needs something to do for you. And she only had Chance at the time. And so that's where our bond started, is that my grandma started babysitting Chance. And it just, every day, Dawn would bring him up and he'd called us all. I was Aunt Katie, there's Uncle John, there was Grandma and Granddad. He just, everywhere we went, and he had the biggest blue eyes, and I also have blue eyes. And being 15, if I had a doctor's appointment, my grandma would go with me. And so many times people were like, your little boy is so beautiful and so cute. And I'm like, he's not mine, but he followed me wherever I went. So it didn't matter what was going on. He was by my side if I was there.
Aunt Katie talks to me about Chance.
An amazing person, just a good soul. He loved everybody. He was fun. He loved to have a good time. Just always included the people that were always left out. He was always that kid that he was friends with, the one that wasn't necessarily the popular person, but Chance always made time for that person, no matter what. Very athletic, an all around good person that he would talk to I shouldn't say he'd talk to anybody. He was kind of shy until he got to know you, but once he got to know you, he was just right there for everybody.
While Chance was going through college, he was living with Aunt Katie.
He lived with me for quite a while. As an adult, when he was going through college, I worked and lived in Gillette and got him a job at a coal mine. So we have lots of crazy memories together. When he was college rodeoing, there was a couple of times that they would be in Gillette because he rode for LCCC. And so the Gillette College would have rodeos as well. And him and a couple of buddies came, and the one day was they had typical college mentality, decided they were going to do lawn darts in my backyard. And I'm old, so I was like, what the hell's lawn darts? And they're like, it's so fun, Aunt Katie, you got to play with us. And so they started explaining to me that they're throwing these great big darts up in the air that literally can stab a person and hoping that it doesn't get you. And I'm all like, we are not playing that game. And they thought that was the funniest thing. Just going and watching him ride, he could have went so many places being a bronc rider, and I enjoyed every minute of that. I remember getting in trouble for the college or high school rodeo, actually. And we were in Gillette, and he got knocked out in the buck and shoot before the horse ever came out, and they still let the horse out. And I was instantly mad, and Dawn and Everett were sitting right next to me, and they were both very calm and collected. And I was like, I'm going over there. And Dawn's all like, I'm not allowed to go over there. And I'm like, well, I never got the memo saying Aunt Katie couldn't go across the catwalk to go make sure he's okay. Finally, Everett's like, I'm going because I don't want you to get in trouble or yell at somebody.
We talk about Chance's rodeo years again and just how big of a part of his life it was.
Huge part of his life. He started as a freshman. He might have started in junior high, actually. Bareback rider, I guess is what he was, is a wild horse, essentially. They're not tame, and they put a bareback saddle on there, and you're pretty much tied to the horse, or gripped to the horse. I shouldn't say tied to the horse. And you take it for a ride for 8 seconds and hope for the best. There's a lot of videos out there. If you go look, you can Google them, and there's a lot of videos of him winning rodeos and them interviewing him.
I looked online, and she was right. Chance was a rising rodeo athlete. And I want to share this audio clip with you from an interview he did after riding 8 seconds on a huge bull, winning that rodeo.
Watched that bull go last night, and he's just a sweetheart. I was really wanting to draw him, and then today he kind of came out there, and he's a little trickier to ride. He kind of went out there across there, really wanted to sit me back, but I just cowboyed it out and made the whistle. So first one for college. So let's talk about that. What's that like? Finally have one in your hands. Oh, it feels amazing. I've been struggling so much in bareback riding. I just started riding bulls again this year, and just to overcome what I've accomplished this year is just amazing. And I'm just proud of myself, proud of my team.
That audio may have been a little hard to hear, so I'm going to leave a link in the show notes to where you can watch that video on the podcast Facebook page. Aunt Katie tells me it was hard not to love Chance. The kind of person he was made it easy to like him, and she talks about the mark he left on people.
It was hard not to love Chance. I don't know. I can't even tell you I've ever ran into anybody that told me they didn't like him, ever. Even when I worked with him, like, he gave me a hard time all the time. And because I was in HR, of course, which is never a good mix, right? Your nephew works underneath you, and you're in HR. And he would tease me all the time. He's like, I am so sick of going to work and everybody tell me how hot my aunt is. And I'm all like, well, thanks, bud, but it's all good. He's like, but what am I supposed to tell him? And I'm like, you just smile and say thank you. Like, tell him how lucky you are. I don't know what to tell you. Yeah. But, he was just a good guy. I mean, he would have had my back if one of them was being awful, but he never had to, that. He just wasn't that kid. He just was, loving, and they knew that they could rouse him a little bit and get him frustrated with saying stuff like that. And he took it with a grain of salt. And there's a couple of the old guys that are now retired that I run into every now and then. I don't work out at the coal mine anymore. I still have contact with some of them, and they just would tell me what a great kid he was always, and still do. And that just makes me feel warm inside that he left a mark on this world of that and not something else.
Matt Miller was Chance's best friend, a friend anybody would be blessed to have. He's been very outspoken, heavily involved in searches, and a dedicated friend to finding Chance, finding his friend that he misses. Here's Matt talking to me about how he met Chance and how they became friends.
Well, Chance was starting out, I guess. When I first met him, he was way shy, quiet. He actually thought I didn't like him. And we met at the coal mine is where we met originally. He got put on my crew. And we ended up just becoming really good friends, and ended up spending a lot of time outside of work together, fishing, riding horses, whatever we were up to that day. It seemed like we were always getting a hold of each other to do something. I miss the guy terrible. He was always around. He'd do anything for you. You could call him middle of the night or middle of the day. It didn't matter. He was there for you. Yeah, you definitely don't run across people like him very often. That's for sure.
Matt met Chance when Chance had shifted away from the rodeo and was more focused on settling down and his profession at the mine. And during this time, he had picked up more of an interest in derby cars.
We worked on a bunch of derby cars together. We enjoyed it. He had his little house and shop with his derby car in there, and I'd swing in as much as I could and help him out. He enjoyed his derby for sure. And I mean, I tried to do it afterwards. I just ain't mechanically inclined enough like he was.
At some point, there was a massive layoff at the mine they both worked at. I wanted to hear from Matt about that and how they got new jobs right away, highlighting the kind of person Chance was.
Yeah, when they closed the gates on us, yeah. We were actually on days off. They didn't even call us to tell us. We heard through Facebook, and all of our friends that were actually on shift called us and let us know what was going on. They wouldn't let us come get our toolboxes. It was a complete lockdown. But I mean, Chance handled it a lot better than I did. He ended up finding this job at Blakeman and grabbed me up and said, "Hey, they're looking for 2 welders. You want to jump in with us?" I said, "Heck yeah, dude." So we both ended up having a job. It was amazing. I don't know, man. He was ready to go to work that day, and they said, "Nah, go enjoy your holiday, and we'll start afterwards." Where me, on the other hand, it was the 4th of July. I was like, I'll probably start after the 4th. I'm not going to jump right on this. He was ready to go to work that day, the second they hired him.
Chance was ready to go, just like the rodeo, ready to get on that bull and ride that 8 seconds. He was ready to get back to work. I've learned so much about Chance while doing this story. He himself may not have liked all this attention, all the drama, the rumors, speculation that has come after his disappearance. But there's one thing for sure. All this attention is because so many people care. It's because Chance touched many lives, mine included. I received a Facebook message the other day from an author who lives here in Nebraska. He has written a 5-book fiction series and has dedicated his last 2 books to Chance Englebert and included his information for people to reach out if they have any knowledge of Chance's disappearance, wanting to help in any way he can. His name is Bernard Burgess and goes by Bernie, and he was also touched by Chance's story.
I'm 78 years old. I grew up in a small town in western Nebraska. Grew up on a cattle ranch out 50 miles east of Alliance, out in the middle of nowhere, as one of my bosses used to say. One-room country schools, the outhouse in the backyard by the school and all of that. Rode horses to and from. Small high school in Hyannis where I played all sports. From there, went to the University of Nebraska in Lincoln, and Vietnam was going on, so I went into Air Force ROTC, figuring I would try to control my own fate where military service was concerned. And I graduated from ROTC in Lincoln and went into the Air Force, spent 21 years as a military officer and pilot. And since retiring, I have kind of bounced around in the civilian world trying to figure out what I could do that didn't really involve working a traditional type of job. I didn't really want corporate anything. Kind of preferred to stay in small business areas if I could. I was a rep for DeVry University for a period of time out of Kansas City. Did a lot of lectures to high school students in Arkansas and Oklahoma. Did a couple of years as a PI, investigating insurance fraud primarily. I liked the challenge of that. I just didn't like the amount of time you spent in a vehicle just sitting and waiting. So I kind of gave that up after a couple of years. But that's some of the impetus for the stories I write, because my series is based on a husband-wife private investigation team who specialize in finding missing. My fictional PI team, she is a psychic. The husband-wife team, he's a retired ranger and she's psychic. So they bring those two elements to the stories and to the investigations that they do. And then they have a coy wolf tracker animal, which is gifted at trailing people by scent. So that's the team that I've simulated in my stories to find missing people. And at times I wish I was young enough now and so on to create for real the kind of team that I have created in a fictional story. I would love to be involved for real in helping find people like Chance.
Bernie tells me how he came to learn about Chance.
I've been kind of following the story of Chance and so on ever since I first heard about it back in, I guess it's 2019. I guess at this point in time, doesn't seem like it should be that long ago. My mother at that time was living in Alliance, Nebraska, after my father had passed away, and she was staying in an apartment in Alliance, and I would visit her a lot during that period of time because my dad was gone, of course. And on one of those visits in 2019, my brother was there. He ranches south of Ashby still on the old place. And he said, have you heard about this missing person, Chance, out of Gering? And I had not, so he brought me up to date. And that's how I heard about it, was word of mouth from my brother. And then I got to looking into it more because of my interest in the missing, and it just sounded like a story to know about. And so that was the beginning of my involvement. And I started following the website, followed the things that Matt Miller had to say about the whole situation. Really admire that young man for the dedication he has had to his friend. Then I reached out to Dawn and just chatted with her a time or two through Messenger, just enough to say, stranger out here who has empathy for you and supports what you're trying to do.
Then we talk here about how he came to dedicate his last 2 books to Chance.
Well, the last 2, I didn't really come upon the idea until my last 2 books. The 5th book of my series is called Evil Runs Through It. It's set around the fictional abduction of a Pine Ridge teenager and the efforts of my fictional team to try to find her. But I dedicated the beginning of that book to Chance. I put in it's a poster that you see frequently in relation to him that shows, the basic information about him. It's the same poster that you've seen numerous times, I'm sure, but I put that in the dedication of that book. And then the next book was a standalone mystery, kind of a romantic mystery, but I put that in the same dedication of that book as well.
Through this, he hopes that he can be of help and that answers are found for the friends and family.
For Dawn and her family's sake, I certainly hope there could be a resolution at some point in time so they know what happened. Most people, when you lose someone, you know what happened. But in their case, they lost him, but they don't know what happened. It's just a tragic mystery.
A mystery indeed, and needs to be solved. This family needs answers. The friends need answers. Chance needs to be found. At 25, Chance was a young man, a husband with a new child, settling down. He was shy until you got to know him. He was easy to get along with. He was an incredible athlete. He was hardworking, but liked to party and have a good time too. Chance was a good soul who was there for anybody. And now he needs us to be there for him. It's easy when someone goes missing to focus only on the mystery, to get caught up in theories, timelines, and unanswered questions. And no doubt we cover all of that here as we explore Chance's story. But before all of this, there was Chance. A young man with dreams, with a heart for his family, with so much life ahead of him. That's why I tell his story, not to just ask what happened to him, but to remember who he was, to keep his light shining, and to remind the world that Chance Englebert was more than a missing person. He was a loved and loving person whose presence is deeply missed every single day. Thank you for listening to Chapter 2, The Heart of a Cowboy. Stay tuned for Chapter 3, After the Storm, in which we will discuss the search efforts made for Chance Englebert. Here's a clip from Chapter 3, After the Storm.
I do know, spoke to witnesses in the area, non-law enforcement witnesses, that stated there was some hits along the canal that went along Stable Club Road, and there was some hits along the shore banks of the North Platte River, north of the Owl Road. So in that area, there was hits for Chance's, we believe Chance's scent. And then they just kind of vanished in that area.
Remember, this podcast is a mission, and I want to thank you for being a part of it. And together, we can keep a light on for Chance Englebert. So like this podcast, share it with a friend, and subscribe to wherever you like to listen to podcasts. You can head to the podcast Facebook page, which is Keeping the Light On, Nebraska's Missing Persons Podcast. And you can also go to the official Facebook page created by family and friends called Help Find Chance Englebert. You can show support there as well. And again, you never know. A share here, a follow there, a subscribe there. The more awareness that we can bring to Chance Englebert and support his family and friends, the better our chances are of bringing him home. And that's what this ultimately is all about. Keeping the Light On, Nebraska's Missing Persons Podcast, is created, produced, and edited by me, Josh Kangley. Sources used are hours of interviews conducted by myself and public source material. Thank you for listening. Thank you for helping me keep the light on. Keeping the Light On, Nebraska's Missing Persons Podcast, is a Guiding Lights Network podcast hosted by Josh Kangley.
I want people to know we are never giving up. We're not going away. We're going to be in their faces until we find out what happened to him.
If you know anything, it's time. If you know anything, it is time to speak out. It is time to say something. In each of my podcasts, in the show notes, there's going to be information to where you can go if you know anything. If it's something you remember, if it's something that you might think is not important, it might be. You know, sometimes the smallest things break cases wide open.